What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Today we are in the garage and we're going to be doing a tire review video on the Yokohama XMT tires. Let's get started. I've been running these Yokohama XMTs on my Jeep for quite a while now. It's been about 3 years, 27,000 miles, and it's time to do a video review. A lot of you guys have been asking me to do a review on these tires, but personally, I really think that video reviews or kind of like tire reviews should be done towards the end of the tire life. I hate it when people do like a tire review on a set that they just got. There's no good way to really tell you guys how a tire is until you've experienced them in different terrains, you've known how well the tread life lasts, and then, you know, kind of at the end of the tire, you get an idea of, hey, what's been good about them, what's been bad. So it's time to do a full video review. But first off, it is Veterans Day. I have the day off work. Thank you to all my fellow veterans. Happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service. But the past giveaway winners, so the oil catch can giveaway winner, MG Witcher 6, he has not responded yet. So MG Witcher 6, this is your last chance before I give it away to somebody else. Go down in the comments and let me know that you're watching and you still want the oil catch can. And for the Seafoam video giveaway, can of Seafoam, Adam Spearman, just like all the other giveaways. If you're watching this, go down in the comments, leave your email address, as well as shoot me an email to jkgearandgadgets@gmail.com, and we'll get you a can of Seafoam shipped out to you. But let's go ahead and get started. First off, before we start talking about these tires, let's go ahead and put a bunch of clips of these tires in action off-road. So hopefully you guys can tell that we've put these tires through their paces in a lot of different off-road scenarios, as well as on-road driving. Like I've already mentioned, I've owned the old set of tires for 27,000 miles. That is a lot of miles for a very, very aggressive off-road tire. But before we start talking about all the specs, I have a full sheet of things we're gonna talk about over there. Let's take a look at them. So here we have the Yokohama XMT tires. These are part of their Geolander family. This specifically is the G005 in a 40-inch tire. It's quite big. But let's just take a look at, you know, kind of the construction of the tire. These are new. I think they probably have around 1,000 miles on them now. But you can take a look at these and say, oh my gosh, those are extremely beefy. They look like they're gonna wear quick. They look like they're gonna howl like crazy on the road. And we're gonna talk about all of that in this video. But the general construction, these are definitely a mud terrain tire. You look at them, the lug to void ratio is incredible. And what that means is these are the lugs, this is the void. The tire tread is definitely on the extreme mud terrain side. Now over here on the side, we have an aggressive sidewall. There's a bunch of little side lugs, but these are really gonna help you not only in the mud, but in the rocks. These are really an important part of an off-road tire. But overall, as you can tell, very aggressive tire, very, very cool looking. But most of you guys know that not only does a tire have to look cool, it has to perform well as well. So right here we have a sheet of everything we're gonna go over. So Yokohama XMT, Geolander, G005, covered all of that, cool. Now, one big question that a lot of people have is, hey, what does the tire actually mount at? That's an important part of buying a tire. If you buy a 40-inch tire, most people wanna get a 40-inch tire. Now, there's a few things to take a look at and kind of realize when it comes to that. A lot of people will go over to a brand new tire and measure the height with it unmounted. Does that actually matter? To some people, yes, but to me, no. So here we have an old used tire with 27,000 miles on it next to a new tire that's mounted and on the way to the Jeep. I don't know if you guys can tell, but right here, this old used tire is actually sitting a little bit higher. So we are gonna measure these tires as they sit under the Jeep. Let's grab my measuring tape, and we're gonna talk about why that actually matters. So we're gonna put a flat piece of steel right up there on the tire. Grab our measuring tape. Let's see what these babies measure at. Mounted on the Jeep, around 38.5 inches. So a lot of people will kind of get mad at this. Man, I bought a set of 40s and they're only 38.5. There's so many different variables. Now what we're looking at here is the tires have 28 PSI in them. If I raised them up to 35 sure, it might give us a little bit more. But as it sits now, 38.5 inches. Now, a lot of this has to do with the 1-ton axles, the heavier Jeep, and then the fact that the tires do kind of settle down a little bit once they're mounted. So there's a lot of different kind of arguments online, and of course tires right off the bat, huge personal preference thing when it comes to you know, what tires are the best, how they do, tire height, all that stuff. But the way I like to measure tires is how they sit under the Jeep. Now, if we measured these right when they were completely fresh, unmounted, Yokohama does say online that they measure 39.7 inches. Once you put them on the Jeep is when it actually matters. So right off the bat, they do measure smaller than 40, but does that honestly matter in the end? All of your tire sizes are gonna be a little bit different once they're mounted on the Jeep. You know, if we put these on a very heavy truck, it's gonna be even smaller just because the tire is gonna kind of squish down a little bit depending on the weight of the vehicle. In the end, does it really matter? I'll let you decide. I am perfectly fine with having a 40 that measures a little bit less, especially under this heavy Jeep. But let's go over here back to the board. Now, a lot of people have questions about mud, rock, street, how these tires handle in all of those situations. Let's start off with mud. These, in my opinion, are a 5-star tire when it comes to mud. The reason they do so good in the mud is basically because of the lug to void ratio. As you can tell, these things are they just want to grab and sling that mud so good. And that's just because of the tread design. These things do really, really good in mud. Both kind of the soupy mud, the clay mud, all of that stuff, these things have been very, very good in muddy situations. What that also kind of leads to is not only straight up mudding, but also really wet, soupy, rocky off-road conditions. So most of you guys out there on the East Coast know exactly what I'm talking about. You're going rock crawling and there's mud everywhere. Windrock is a great example. These tires did phenomenal. Not only are they good on the rocks, but they're also really good at getting that mud out of there and kind of gripping in the mud. So these are a very East Coast friendly tire, as well as people who really like the mud. Now on the other side of that, how do these do in the rocks out west where it's really dry, there's a ton of grip, and it's nothing but sandpaper rock everywhere? In the last wheeling trip I did, we were up in Mason, Texas at Wolf Caves. Out there, the rocks have a ton of traction, it's really dry, and the rocks are kind of flat for the most part. How do these tires do in that kind of situation? Tires like this that have a big void to lug ratio aren't gonna do as good in dry rocks. Think about it very simply. What gives a tire traction on very dry rocks? It's the rubber. So of course, by having this ratio of a huge void, we do not have as much rubber touching the rocks. So these tires in the very, very dry, flat rocks, they don't do as well. That's the only downside of these. So I've kind of been getting some feedback from other people that are running these tires out west, people in like Moab, out in California. They might not like these tires as much just because that big void ratio that's made for the mud environment doesn't do as good on the rocks because it doesn't have as much rubber on the rock at one time. Now, the spots where these tires do good in very dry, rocky situations is kind of the East Coast rock situation where the rocks have edges, they're not as flat and smooth, they're really kind of like a granite that has ledges and bumps all over the rocks. These lugs really kind of grip onto it, and they do real good. If you're a rock crawler out on the West Coast, these might not be the best tires for you. Now, if you're somebody on the East Coast or like centralized where there's some mud with your rocks, these do amazing. Let's dive into the next section. On the street, I give it 3 stars. As you guys can imagine, these are definitely not the most like street-friendly tires, but they do extremely well for how aggressive they are. Like I said, let's go ahead and check out the 27,000 mile tire. Sorry for rolling around. I know this is probably extremely annoying, listen to me rolling around. But here we have 27,000 miles of street and off-road use on this tire. They have done pretty good. However, they are definitely near the end of their tread life. As you can tell, the siping in here is starting to wear out, and siping has a big role in how these things do on the road when it rains. So as you can tell, the fresh tires, let me brush kind of this mud off there, they do have a good amount of siping all up in here. We have this little secondary lug right here. We have the siping in the main lugs themselves, and that's what's gonna help your on-road driving when it's raining or it's really wet out. Once these wear down, your siping kind of diminishes a little bit, and these are gonna handle a little worse in the rain. But for the most part, they have handled pretty good in the rain. My Jeep doesn't really have enough power to start sliding around everywhere, but the street driving use has been decent. There's no really bad effects of them. Of course, they are a mud terrain tire, and right off the bat, mud terrains don't really do as good on the road compared to like a passenger car tire. But overall, these things have done pretty good on the street. Next up is noise level. You're gonna look at these, but man, these things are going to howl like crazy. I'm gonna go ahead and put up a video clip of these driving down the road. As you can tell, they're not extremely loud. Yes, you can hear them, but looking at these, you think they'd be like whoop, 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 whoop. Like that crazy, extreme loud tire that most people would think they are. They do make some noise, but for the most part, they're extremely quiet for how aggressive they are. All right, I should have just been putting this up on the tripod so the video wasn't going crazy. You know, me moving around, I'm a really wiggly person. But tire compound. A lot of you guys probably aren't too familiar with what a tire compound is. And really what that is kind of the composition of the rubber. You can have a really hard tire where the rubber's really stiff, and that's gonna make the tire tread life last extremely long. Then you can have a really soft tire, like a sticky tire, which is gonna do great off-road, but it's just gonna wear down extremely fast. And different companies are gonna have different rubber compounds. What I've noticed on these Yokohamas is that it's really kind of in the middle. They are hard enough to last a long time. 27,000 miles on a tire like this is kind of crazy, but they're still soft enough to give us good traction off-road. You know, a lot of things I've been seeing lately is that, you know, people love a soft tire. It does great off-road right off the bat, but then 20,000 miles later, your tire is done. So what we have here is a tire durometer, and what this is gonna do is actually show us kind of the compound, the hardness or softness of the tire. So we have this right here. We're gonna go ahead and test these new tires, test the old ones, and test the other two Jeeps that we have out in the driveway. So what we have here is our durometer. We're gonna put it and press it all the way down. You push nice and hard. So right around 9.5 or 10. The lower the number, the softer the compound is. We're gonna do it on this old used tire. All right, as you can tell, that's a little bit higher. An older tire over time is going to get harder. The compound does kind of stiffen up. So these fresh sets are right around 10, the older ones are 12. Let's crack open the garage and test some other tires. If you guys are curious, I got this on Amazon. I'll throw a link in the video description so you can check the compound of your tires. So here we have the Yokohama all-terrains, extreme all-terrains. Let's test these. As you can tell, 13. It is a stiffer tire. It's gonna last a little bit longer. It's more designed for on-road opposed to extreme off-road. Now, Cassie just went with a fresh set of Atturo tires. These are the Atturo Trailblade Boss. Let's check these. Once again, 12, all right. So these two tires, the Trailblade Boss from Atturo and the Extreme All-Terrains from Yokohama, they're a little bit harder, which means they might not do as good off-road, but they are gonna last a little bit longer than these. The only downside to a harder compound tire is they might not do good off-road, but they are going to last you a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and close the garage, it's extremely hot. So we went over the compound. It's kind of hard to really compare the compound of these tires to other ones, just because most tire manufacturers don't give you a durometer reading, and I don't have access to all of the different tire brands. But overall, these are a middle of the road compound. They're not too hard, but they're not too soft. Really kind of in the middle there, but they do work really good. Next up is tread life. I really don't know, too much how to explain this to you guys, but they lasted me 27,000 miles, which is pretty good. If you do put these on a really heavy Jeep, they're gonna wear down quicker. If you do off-road a ton, they are gonna wear down quicker. Now, off-roading, a big part of tread life is to make sure they don't chunk off. When I first got these tires, which are these, I did have a little bit of issue with chunking just because of the lugs, how kind of aggressive they are. If you're on a really sharp rock, it's gonna wanna kind of chunk them off, bring some of those lugs off. Now over here, I do have an example of that. So right here, as you can tell, there's a little piece missing. And what I've noticed with these tires is that you really have to air them down extremely low to avoid that chunking. The first trip I made out with these, that sounds like I was kissing them. The first trip out with these was at Uwharrie National Forest in North Carolina, and those rocks are pretty sharp. I didn't air them down near as much as I should, and they kind of chunked off in a few spots just because of those rocks, especially once we start spinning them. It's gonna wanna chunk off. So what I learned is that you air these down extremely low, like 10 PSI or less. Luckily I'm on beadlocks, so we can air them down really low. And they kind of avoid chunking because the tire can mold around the rocks. Once I learned that, they were pretty good, but right off the bat, when they chunked a little bit, I was like, man, what's going on? Why are they doing this? It's because of the tread design, especially once you're on the rocks. Noise level, we went over that. That you can hear them, they're not the quietest tire, but for what they are, extremely good. Now, let's just kind of end this up with the pros and cons. The pros for this tire, mud. These do phenomenal in the mud, plus the East Coast style wheeling, where it's really slick rock, all that stuff, these do really good. The sidewall strength of these tires is phenomenal. I wish, actually we have one unmounted. I'm going back and forth, sorry guys, but they are extremely thick. The sidewall is really strong. I've had zero issues with the sidewall of these tires. I think there's one out there that I have a little gash in there. No issues at all. The sidewall is really thick, it's plenty strong. And wow, I forgot a very important part. The weight of these tires. Man, all right. So these tires in a 40-inch tire weigh 93.5 pounds. That's a heavy tire. I know there are other tires out there that weigh a lot less, but where are you losing that weight? Mostly in the design of the tire. Of course, if they're gonna be the same height, 40-inch tire, what makes this heavier? The tire is a little bit stronger. The sidewall's thicker. The general construction of the tire is built to withstand rocks and tire punctures a little bit better. So the heavier tire isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of people look at tire weight and they're like, man, these things are gonna get worse gas mileage. I'm gonna break my axles more. There are a bunch of pros and cons when it comes to weight of a tire. Luckily, if you're geared correctly, you have the axle upgrades to handle your tire size, weight doesn't become too much of an issue. Now, miles per gallon, kind of your performance of your engine, it is gonna vary by the weight of your tires, but overall, 93.5 pounds for a 40 isn't horrible, especially, compare these to a Nitto Trail Grappler. I think those weigh like 103 pounds, so they are a little bit lighter than some competitors, but compared to something like Milestars or other cheaper tires, these are gonna weigh more. And the reason they weigh more is just because the sidewalls are a little bit thicker, which is a great thing. Now, let's go back here. Sorry, I can't believe I didn't talk about weight at all. That a lot of people question that. Pros, looks, they look really cool. They're very extreme looking tires, so that's awesome. Cons, we talked about dry rock. So out west, they can't have their cons just because of the tread design. Tread life, they do wear quicker than your other tires. These tires had 27,000 miles. Sure, I could squeeze them out to 30 and then they'd be completely done. But there are other off-road mud terrain tires that aren't as aggressive that might last you up, 40, 50,000 miles. These tires are not one of those. Chunking, we talked about that, which we kind of figured out how to avoid that. But pro-con, what is both the pros and cons of these tires? Tread life. I put that in the con just because they don't last too long. However, for a tire this aggressive, that tread life is phenomenal. If you looked at these, most people I've seen online, people are like, man, they're gonna wear down extremely fast on the highway. For how aggressive these are, getting 27,000 miles out of them is a great thing. Next, noise. While they are a little bit loud on the road, they are not near as loud as you would think they'd be for a tire this aggressive. So see what I'm saying, kind of pro-con. The tread life does last a good amount of time for how aggressive they are, but by no means are these a tire that last a very long time. Same with the noise. They're very quiet for what they are, but they're no means a very quiet tire. And of course, the last one's price. These in a 40-inch tire you can find for $390 each, which is pretty expensive. There are cheaper ones, but there also are more expensive tires. So $390 in the middle road, they're expensive, but they're not too expensive. So that's about it. I really did enjoy these tires. I went with them again, mostly because they just kind of do good in an all-around environment. I've really enjoyed them. They've worked great for me. I really like how they look. I like how they ride. I like how strong they are as a tire, and I like how they perform kind of in a mix of all the environments. Now, I know the one thing I didn't cover is snow. We have not had these out really in snow at all. But I have heard good things from people that have had these in the snow. Of course, the ice, they're probably not gonna do too good. Not many off-road tires do. But overall, they've been a great set of tires, and I've really enjoyed them. So hopefully this answered a lot of your questions. Would I recommend these to you guys? It really depends. If you have an everyday driver where you drive 50 miles to work, 50 miles home, these might not be the tire for you. If you daily drive your Jeep, you know, every once in a while, you drive to the trails, you do a bunch of trails, these tires are gonna do good for you. So it's kind of, you're gonna have to figure it out for yourself. Do these work good off-road? Yes. Are they the best for on-road use? Yes and no. They will withstand on-road use. However, they're mostly designed for off-road use. You can look at them and kind of see that. But if you have any questions about the tires, go down to the comments and let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. I know this was fairly long of a video, but I wanted to make sure we kind of covered every point in regards to these tires. Thanks for watching, guys. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned. This weekend, me and Cassie are making a 6-hour drive to go pick up something really, really cool. I'll see you guys later.